Welcome to the milk bar. 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 Welcome to the milk bar.
Welcome along to episode 682 of The Milk Bar. Jason Forrest here with you as ever. And coming up on the show this week, Dr. Sarah Jarvis will be along to talk about some health issues. We'll be talking about some environmental issues with a health practitioner from Warsall's Manor Hospital. Also, on top of that, we'll be catching up with Susie Dent as we're finding out some of the words that people love and hate that have made their way into their language. Also, we're hearing from Robert Lane as we find out about a fantastic improv night coming to the Lighthouse at the end of July. And on top of that, we'll be joined by Tristan Jackson-Pate of the Cherwell Theatre Company. They have a fantastic show, which is a sort of autobiographical in many ways of Tristan, which is going to be on stage in August. That's all coming up on the show this week. You Are My Sunshine is now available on DVD. The award-winning film produced in the Midlands and with a cast who are absolutely awesome and a great team behind it too. Dave Hastings is here to tell us more. Hello, sir.
Hello.
How are we doing?
I'm very, very hot.
It's been one of those warm weeks, isn't it, this week? I don't think we have any choice. However, it's a good job it wasn't this warm when you were filming, because that would have spoilt things a little bit. But a labour of love over a number of years, and now finally you have a real physical DVD copy of it.
Yeah.
You happy?
I'm over the moon. It's just really nice. It's more so for the cast and the crew. I'm just so overwhelmed for them and stuff, because all their hard work and patience and effort and everything has come into this nice little package now. So
it's first class storytelling that people are going to want to own, which is the thing as well. And it legitimizes it being on DVD in many ways. Streaming is streaming, and I know it's what's taken the world by storm. But when you've got something you can put on the DVD collection shelf at home, actually it feels real, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And it's one of those things. It's a new thing for me. This is I usually we end up distributing our own stuff, so we kind of make the discs and everything and stuff. But this time TLA obviously bought the rights to it, and they've been doing all this stuff with it. And obviously looking at the DVD yesterday and stuff, they've done a fantastic job with it. And they've been getting it out into the world, and I can't thank them enough. They've been so wonderful with us, and keeping us up to date with what's going on and things like that. So I've not really had to worry. I know it's in the best place with people who actually care about it and will just want it out there like we do.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously as well, those who've been seeing the timeline will have noticed a French version of the DVD case too.
Yeah, that was a bit surprising. I didn't actually know about that one. That was quite surprising. It's been a magical journey, and long may it continue and stuff, where it's now out of our hands and in the hands of people who can watch it now, and it's going to go off and have its own life, and hopefully people will enjoy it. So,
that's what it's about though. It's about putting it in an accessible place, and it's something that people can pick up, and it's a very reasonable price on Amazon. Now, is the French version dubbed into French as well?
No, I think it's just subtitled. It's just subtitled. From what I've gathered, it's subtitled, yeah.
But I mean, that's nice in itself as well. And I'm very grateful to you for the fact that the interviews we've done throughout the run up to this, you've included as DVD extras too.
Yeah, well, it was, it's our way of saying thanks to you. You've always supported us and stuff, and to get you a bit of exposure on a DVD and stuff, then great.
It's quite exciting. I should be picking up my copy from Amazon. But it is, again, as we said, it's about the team that have come together to make this. It's a story that you believe in, the way you've told it, and you've got a brilliant team around you who've helped to do that. And everything from the director of photography through the way in which it's been so well costumed, and that is again something that hasn't been easy to do based on the nature of the time traveling backwards and forwards in the film. But being able to tell where you are and when you are have been important. And again, this is something that's come across so well. And people can now, once you are on DVD in a streaming service, it's not like seeing it at the cinema where people could watch linearly. They can now freeze frame and look in detail at these things. And people will, that's the thing.
Yeah, there's a few things I know in there that I could freeze frame and kind of go, oh, I know that is. But I won't tell people where to look for that and stuff. They can find it in their own time. But it's just a case of, we don't have a massive budget for these things. All of us are volunteers on it. We do it because we just want to tell a story, and because we enjoy making films, and because the actors and the crew, we're like one big family and stuff. We know what we can do with each other. We know what each person can do. you know we know what obstacles we can face and how we can overcome them, and so forth. And I always find sometimes, even though we have got a considerably lower budget, it actually makes us more creative as well, because we have to look at an issue and go, right, well, we haven't got 4 million quid to throw at that problem. How do we get around it on 20 quid? So yeah, but that's kind of the fun of it. I mean, as much as we'd love a bigger budget, right? You know what I mean? But in terms of what we have at the moment, it's fun, and people are liking it. So that's all we can ask for, really. And the response we've had so far has been absolutely wonderful, and people are embracing this love story, because it's just because it's with two guys instead of like a male and a female. People have not really noticed. It's just a love story.
Yeah, absolutely. And having seen the film, and you gave me an advanced copy of it to be able to watch, and you do get that, and you're just following the two characters throughout their lives, and all those ancillary people around there who, again, are spread across time as well. And I think that's another nice way of doing it. You're telling a story in two different time periods. Their attitudes are fortunately very different, but even so, there's still some hangover and carryover, and he tells that part of the tale too. And you don't find yourself engrossed in the things around them, but the things around them help to tell that story of their love. And I think that's another important part of it. You got to see how love will go throughout whatever happens.
Yeah, it was a conscious effort to remain singular on the story, but just announce every now and again that there was things going on in the world around them. So for instance, we do mention the first Pride that happens in London, which is in the 70s. They don't go to Pride, but it's mentioned, and it just gives a context to the film, but it doesn't necessarily impact on them. You know what I mean? So we are acknowledging that the world is evolving around these two characters, but we don't have to focus on that. It's more just them still.
Yeah, it's their story with things happening around them.
Yeah, we're just acknowledging things are happening around them, but it's not pivotal, so to speak.
Well, I tell you what it is amazing cinema, and you've got awards to prove that, and that must be, again, really heartwarming for you and the cast, and the love that's gone into making this.
It is, yeah. It's been pretty special, and I'm just overwhelmed. I think that's the word I keep using, is overwhelmed. We try to do our best and stuff and everything, and it's just been a magical journey, and just overwhelmed.
Well,
I never really know what to say about these.
Well, the plaudits are well deserved. I'll say it for you. The amount of work and effort and quality that you've got on that screen is the reason why you've won those awards.
It's a complete team effort, always.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But I think that's, again, another big part of it. It's that everyone's come together, but they had to have someone at the helm. They had to have these characters created from somewhere. The writing had to be done. The direction had to be done. And, there's no taking away from the fact that has been, again, a vitally important part of it. So well done, mate.
Thank you.
Thank you. But, so give us the details of how people will get their hands on a copy of You Are My Sunshine.
Well, it's on HMV, so you can buy it in HMV stores now. You can go online and book and order it off HMV, off Amazon, worldwide as well. Amazon is, you can get it in America, Amazon.com, Amazon.co.uk. It is available on Amazon Prime as well. I presume they're having the distributors have got plans to move it elsewhere as well, and put it wherever they can and stuff. So as soon as we know, we'll put it on the Facebook page, and you'll find out all about it and stuff, really. So
the story of the film continues in your socials. Where do people go to for that?
Facebook.com/My Sunshine Movie.
Check out the details. Enjoy the film. Look for those Midlands locations that you can see in there, and it become part of the journey and the story that is here. And once again, as I say, thank you for including me on the DVD.
No, thank you for having the faith in us and keep supporting us and stuff. It means a lot to us. That does.
No problem at all. But Dave, again, congratulations on everything that's happened so far. There is more to come. This isn't where this stops. I think terrestrial TV could be an interesting home for this at some point. So that would be good to see.
Yeah.
You never know. I think Channel 4 might be. Someone needs to have words there.
Maybe, yeah. I shall point the various people to have words.
That would be good. But for now, Dave Hastings, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.
On Friday, the 29th of July, mirth and merriment will be arriving at the Lighthouse, but there isn't actually a script. It's going to be full on improv. Rob Lane can tell us all about that. Hello, sir.
Hello, Jason. How are you doing?
I'm all right. I trust you're finding you well and looking forward to an exciting night of comedy.
Yeah, very much looking forward to it, to be honest. It's our first time doing something at the Lighthouse in Wolverhampton, and it's a brand new night. It's a brand new team of people. So we're very much, looking forward to seeing how we get on, really.
Yeah, because improv itself, I mean, it works best sometimes if you know the people you're working with. So you get where they're going with something, because that helps everybody. But equally, something brand new, the on the edge nature of it could again make this absolutely awesome.
Yeah, so the four performers we've got, the other three and me, I have worked with the three of them before, but in kind of different contexts. We've got Lee Goodall and Matt Dibbins, who've both performed with me before in Intellectuals, which is another improv group that I'm involved with.
Mm-hmm.
And Lawrence Saunders I've worked with on a few different things, but in the world of improv, we were both in Foghorn Improv at one point, which is a long-form improv group based in Birmingham. But this team of people have not been on stage together before. But as you mentioned, that can add in an extra element of excitement.
and I suppose the audience get to be involved in this in many ways too.
Absolutely. They're pretty much as important as we are, really, because pretty much almost everything we do, certainly the way that things start, is based from audience suggestions, and then we run with those suggestions. It's short form improv games, so at the start of most games we'll ask for something to start us off, whether it's a location, a relationship between people, or sometimes just a key word to get us started, and then from there anything can happen. And there are some games that we'll play as well where at various points the audience can have a contribution whilst we're doing it, and we'll have to respond to their suggestions in the moment.
So that's going to be good fun, and it's all about having a bit of a giggle. And again, for audiences, for improv, you don't actually have to shout stuff out. You don't have to be part of it. You just want to sit there and watch. That's cool as well.
Yeah, we want everyone to be comfortable. Certainly for this, it's the first time we've ever done it in this venue. As far as I know, there's not a great improv scene in Wolverhampton in the way that there are in some other places.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not aware of. I haven't spoken much about this, and if you haven't done it, it hasn't happened.
Well, there we go. So certainly for that first one, we want everyone to be comfortable and sort of introduce the idea to them. Whenever we do one of these shows, we tend to start by saying, "Give us a cheer if you've seen improv before." Half people cheer. Give us a cheer if you've never seen it before, and those people usually sound happier.
It's the expectation.
Yeah, no, but that's it. They're unique shows. I can't say too much about what's going to happen because it will just be that event itself, and that's a lot of the fun of it, And they're notoriously difficult to talk about afterwards. You can have an amazing night together, the performers and the audience, but if you try to it's unlike any other show, because if you tried to describe that to people at work or whatever the next day, it won't make any sense, because unless you're in the room, it's very much in its moment. It's great.
And I think part of it is the journey as well, because whatever you start with, you never know where you're going to end up.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's it.
So the event itself it's a Friday night, it's 29th of July. It is, 7:30 start?
7:30 start at the Lighthouse. Tickets are £8 and are, of course, available from the Lighthouse website, which I believe is, you'll know this, light-house.co.uk.
Well improvised, that was very good.
It's almost like I had it in front of me. So the tickets are available there.
And go along, enjoy yourself at the Lighthouse. And I think you're actually in the cafe bar area for the night, aren't you?
That's right. So yeah, I love venues like that, but for my music shows, but also for this sort of thing as well. It's a weird one, comedy improv, because it doesn't quite belong in a comedy club, but it doesn't quite belong in a theatre. Often a lot of the best shows that I've been involved with are that sort of bar area of a theatre. Because if it's a sort of rate seating thing, it's a bit too formal and people feel a little bit too constrained. So something in the sort of middle of the comedy club and the theatres works really well, I think.
Yeah, and it's a weird one. If you're the sort of person who's going to heckle, make sure you control that as well, because improv is sometimes if you need it, you will be able to tell them the phases of the performers. But if you don't, sit back and enjoy.
Exactly right. Yeah, and again, I tend to say like we're going to encourage you to shout out, but only when we ask you to. Although it doesn't always go that way. Sometimes, there might be someone in the audience has I was going to say an even better idea. Might be someone in the audience has a better idea than we do. And sometimes, some of the games are sort of like guessing games where the audience has one up on the performers or on one of the performers. Usually we sort that out, but one of the performers leaves the room and we get something going that they don't know and they have to work out what the rest of us already know. So at various points, the audience has a lot of control over the performers, which audiences tend to enjoy in my experience.
All good fun. And are you the sort of improv group that will take some random props along in case you need them, or is it going to be all, you just stood there and the clothes you turn up in?
I don't know. There's two schools of thought that I like having, especially in that kind of venue as well. So the entire world will be created by our acting skills. Whatever else we could do, but there might be a few things as well. I'll probably have the guitar with me as well because these very talented people are even able to improvise musical things at points as well. So that's always a good gig or two.
And once let loose with the guitar, you can come up with anything as well. So that's going to be absolutely brilliant.
Exactly right. If they don't stop me, I could do all night, but that's not the plan at the moment.
We'll see how that bit works out. You could take over, but either way, it'll be improv, so it'll be okay. Anything is allowed. So light-house.co.uk. So 7:30 start, 29th of July. It's a Friday night. Get your tickets priced at £8 and enjoy an evening of improv comedy that will never happen again. It won't have happened before in its form, and it could be down to you that classic comedy moment comes along because you shout out cucumber when requested. Rob, good to speak to you. Thank you for joining us and have a brilliant time on the night.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it.
Rivita have done some research and it's found the words that we love and hate, because there are some massively fun new words out there that are wildly useful and others which we despise. Susie Dent knows everything about words and joins me now to tell me more. Hello.
Hi, Jason.
How you doing?
Very well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. Now, when it comes to words, say there are new ones every year and they come from all sorts of different sources. What have we seen that people are enjoying at the moment?
Well, one of the things that I loved about this research is that it showed what people love as much as what people hate, because people tend to dwell on, I can't stand this. This really gets on my nerves. So there was quite a lot of celebration of words that, express our modern preoccupations and the way that we are living our lives. These were chosen from recent additions to the dictionary. So there was live stream, for example. Surprisingly for me, chillax and bants were on the most liked list rather than the least liked.
Well, yes, I'm with you on that one. And they're not particularly fun words for me.
No, there was sofa surfing, there was simples. Strangely, social distancing and self-isolating were in, but I think that's just because it's become such shorthand embedded in what we mean. But as I say, clearly these were selected from additions to the dictionary. I think mostly if you ask people, what's your all-time favorite word, they will come up with things like serendipity, for example, or discombobulate, and beautiful words like that. But this was really interesting for me as an example of how people are coming to terms with words that perhaps they didn't like so much before. And the other thing that Rivita did, which I think we should really celebrate, is that they're suggesting a new use of ish, for example. So if I was to say to you, Jason, are you hungry? You might come back and say ish, and that use is in the dictionary. But what's being suggested here is that we can all live life a little more ish. I asked you at the top of the interview, how are you? And you said, I'm all right. And actually, you're okay. You're not amazing, probably, and you're not, you're not sort of on the floor.
Yep, I have hay fever, but I've just got to have a coronavirus. So yeah, it's somewhere in the middle.
Okay, good. And most of us do occupy the middle of the road. Most of us do have days that are not amazing and not terrible. They are just ish. And I love the idea that we don't always have to portray on social media this wonderful airbrushed, photoshopped, amazing life with sunsets and, filters and all of that. We can just be ish. So that's one example of an extension of an existing word to embrace something else. And that's very much how language moves. So I really enjoyed that as well.
But when it comes down to some of those negative words, we've got sheg, to provoke or annoy. Now, I hadn't heard that one. We've got something, slang for something. Now, the F instead of the T has already annoyed me since I was a kid, when people used to say think rather than think when I was at school, and that sort of thing. When they start to make the dictionary, that is a bit worrying.
Don't be worried. Do you know what? The very first dictionaries ever to be compiled were of slang, and particularly underworld slang, so the sort of criminal slang that was being used in the 17th and 16th century as well. So slang has always had a legitimate place in the dictionary. It's a different kind of language. It's not one that we use in all contexts, but very often it's the one that we don't understand. You mentioned sheg there. We might need to look that up in the dictionary to see what it means. So it has its place in the dictionary. As I say, we just need to respect context. And something has been a regional variation for a long time. I know some people get really annoyed with I was sat on the wall rather than I was sitting on the wall. Again, in terms of local dialect, that has been around for a very long time. So although they can get on our nerves, sometimes you can say, we've been having this debate for a very, very long time.
Yeah, sat, I don't mind, but sheg sounds like a more positive word than to provoke or annoy, which I thought was a bit odd.
Yeah, that's very often that's the way that slang moves. They love to be, well, I say they, it's usually kids who create these wonderful words, often by flipping existing words. So they flip the meaning, and as soon as the authorities or parents have cottoned onto this, or scaled the wall, then slang has to move on. So it is, apart from emoji, slang is the fastest moving area of language that we have. So very often it will deliberately be sort of the opposite of what you might expect, because that's the idea. It is rebellious.
Takes me back to my teens with the word wicked suddenly becoming something which was good rather than bad. Yes, although there was all sorts of things you had to do, waving your hand around at the same time to make that work. I blame Lenny Henry for that. I think I seem to recall him doing that on telly, but there we are. But words are, I say, they're emotive. They move around quite a lot, and with what Rivita have done here, it really has highlighted some interesting things. And are you prepared to be a bit more ish? Because you are quite precise in your knowledge, aren't you?
Well, yes, precision in knowledge is one thing, but portrayal particularly on social media is another. As I say, I think there is such a pressure to be, well, not to be perfect, but to represent your life as perfect. So I think the acknowledgement, particularly after the last few years, the acknowledgement that life isn't always amazing, it is actually really important, and that we can be really honest about that. And you know what, there have been words in the past that have expressed just this feeling as well. So there's a lovely word from Scots, which is frobly mobbly. So if you were just, well, ish. So it's an extension of the same idea, but I think is really relevant to now, and how we all feel this pressure to be something we're not.
Say that word for me again.
Frobly mobbly.
That is an amazing word. That's pretty and beautiful, isn't it?
It's just gorgeous. And actually, there was a word from the same century that expressed melancholy, or a sort of being down in the dumps kind of mood really well as well. And it sounds just as cuddly, mubble-fubbles. So, if you've got the Sunday evening blues, you can just say, I'm going down with the mubble-fubbles.
Yeah, the thought of going back to work on a Monday is a bit mobile-fubbly. Is that have I just changed?
There you go. You just made it into an adjective. Yeah, that's English evolution, and it's it's a perfect snapshot of how we move things on.
But at least I'm not coming up with sheg, which I say that's peculiar.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Because we can always explore more just by enjoying our own dictionaries, can't we? If you got, you don't. Hang on, do you actually sit down and read the dictionary, or do you more like to write it?
Oh, no, totally. I have the Oxford English Dictionary in front of me as we speak, actually. Behind you, I can see you on Zoom, and then I can see the OED behind. And it is just a treasury of facts and new discoveries for me. So honestly, I learn something new every day. So I'm afraid I do read the dictionary, and you'd expect me to say this, but there's so many secret lives in there. I would encourage everyone to do the same.
Absolutely, sounds like real fun. And I'm just thinking, Rivita have done this research. What we can do is we can get some edible pens and write words on Rivita and actually eat our own words as well. That might be another thing to try.
Oh, love that. I'll
give it a go. Right, Susie, lovely to speak to you. Thank you for joining us. Great to have you along as ever. But before you go, I want another one word for you that's going to sum up the heat wave that we're having at the moment.
Oh, swallowing.
Okay,
it's
that
That's
already sounds like you need to cool down.
Oh, it's just stifling. It's often quite humid, but it's just a stifling, suffocating, heavy heat. And you just say it's swallowing around here.
Okay, well, I should be using that, I think, on Tuesday when it's supposed to be desausaged. For now, Susie Dent, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Jason.
Cherwell Theatre Company have their second actual brand new production of the year. Amazing stuff. Tristan Jackson-Pate tells me more. Hello, sir.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Oh, I'm really well, thanks. I'm on the end of the first week of rehearsals for our new show, Song of the Summer. And yes, a nice calm day after a week of making music and getting to know each other and starting to work on this coming of age gig theatre play. It's all been very exciting.
Well, yeah, and I mean, Sherwell have done some absolutely brilliant work. I mean, you did the arena earlier this year, and I was in Wolverhampton. This time, we're having people travel a little further afield.
Absolutely. So it's a really place-specific show, actually. I grew up, I suppose, came of age, like the characters in my show, in Northampton, which has just an incredible music scene and always have. So the play is set in 2006, one particularly amazing summer of my life, where I played a couple of hundred gigs in a year, really. There was so many amazing venues to play. There were so many exciting musicians who wanted to welcome you in. I was part of kind of 3 different bands. And I just found all my friends and my confidence and had the best summer. So what's been an interesting nostalgic thing this week is doing a little research trip around the town with the cast, the young actors who are playing the roles in the show, who are all about 18, and taking them to some of these legendary venues. The Picturedrome, where we're performing, which is a gig venue I played at once or twice, but also the Racehorse, now the Black Prince. These are still venues that to this day have an amazing just flow of incredible young bands coming through them constantly. The Roadmender, it's been amazing to just kind of rediscover these places and see that they are still alive and kicking after coronavirus, that live and music is well and thriving in Northampton.
It is a strange world we're in at the moment, and everything is sort of a bit half here, half there, and you don't know what you are going to get next. I know that every city centre has struggled with its shops, and sometimes the shops are then the things that build onto the nightlife in a place. And if somewhere isn't, people aren't going during the day, are they going to think to head there of an evening? And I think that's a big part of the problems that we have at the moment. And particularly looking back, I mean, you're going back, 15 years or so, because I know you as an actor musician, and I've seen you in so many shows where you performed like that. You've been to the arena several times, and you're often out on tour. So it's reintroducing your world to a load of people who probably know you for something else too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I'm writer-director on this one, and I'm also a kind of co-composer. There are songs in the show, so it's a kind of gig theatre staging where the audience come in and they're stood as you would be for a gig, and it very much feels like a gig, and then it sort of becomes a play. So it's sort of blending together the world of theatre and the world of gigs. But yes, I started off as an actor musician, but this play, which is fictionalized, but is loosely based on this particular summer I had, where I got a bit distracted actually, and I thought maybe a musician is what I want to be. Maybe that's where it's all going. I was sort of applying for drama schools and not getting anywhere, and like I say, I just got distracted for a year of this glorious kind of summer of playing in bands everywhere, and thought maybe that was it. So yeah, it's been really interesting, and there has been a bit of self-discovery, I suppose, because I do think it was such a character-forming time in my life. I was 17, 18, same age as the actors who were in the show, and there's been a lot of kind of art imitating life, in that they've come in at the start of the week. We've started by learning these songs, these genuine songs I wrote when I was 17, and playing them together. So that's been weird to have actors singing my teenage songs. And then I've taken them to all these places which are still there. So they're having this weird experience of kind of living the play, that they're around that age. They're playing as a band together, they're becoming friends and bonding, and they're drinking in all these venues every night. so it's lovely to be able to make something that's so, I mean, it really is a love letter to a time and a place. And for these people who are kind of new, none of them are from Northampton, so their eyes are just being opened to the amazing scene there.
So is there a Tristan in it, or is there a character that is closest to you, or are you sharing yourself out between all the roles?
There is really. It would be folly to say that there isn't. So our lead character, this is what, it's a bit.
It's not making you sound self-obsessed in any way at all.
No, no, I know. Well, actually, Wednesday was my birthday, was the day that we did this little research trip, and I did think this is a very self-indulgent day for me, but it was brilliant. But no, there is a character who called Alex, played by Charlie Sloboda Bolton, who is he's more like he's definitely based on me, but I think he's grown and developed. And one of the brilliant things about this show is it's had a really long development process. So I started writing it in 2016, and I started working with different groups of young people on it kind of maybe a couple of years after that. It was one of those things where you start writing it just because you think, this was a great time in my life and I want to get some stuff down. But then every time I've worked with different groups of young people to workshop it, and I did a very big kind of project in 2019 in Birmingham with the old Rep Theatre, where we did a good couple of weeks pulling it all apart and putting it back together. And so the characters, all of whom, there's 5 characters, and they've all got grains of little people I knew in them, but I think they've grown and developed, so they do feel like their own 3-dimensional people. And then that final piece of the puzzle is the actors coming to inhabit them the first time. And there's been some really interesting chats in rehearsal where, the cast have asked very specific questions about, was this true, or was this thing, or wasn't this thing, or is my character a real person? And it's been an interesting negotiation, because I think sometimes the fiction is more interesting than the fact, and we are collaborating and creating it together. So I like it that the characters have grown into their own people. But I'm also very excited for my wife and other people, other friends who were around at the time, to come and see the show and see what they remember and who they identify in those characters.
So you're not letting on as to who's whom for the family and friends?
No. Well, also, I suppose another big thread in the show is the Libertines. The Libertines were one of the first bands I really felt excited about and inspired by. And so I was in a couple of bands. I think you wear your influences very on your sleeve, don't you, when you're first playing music in a group? And
See, I think not everybody gets to do this. I know in your family it's pretty normal, but and I've been surrounded by music because I've interviewed bands since I was 15, 16. So the same age you were doing your stuff. I was at university doing a science degree, so I was out of the arts for a bit, but still nipping into radio. But I know that feeling of listening to music, the songs that you hear when you're growing up. So for me, in sixth form, we heard a load of stuff from Stourbridge, the likes of There's Atomic Dustbin, the Wonder Stuff, all these sort of indie rock bands from the Midlands, and that was what was at the centre of it. So for you got the Libertines, and so we had the Wonder Stuff, and we had to find albums lying around sixth form common rooms and things, and it is the soundtrack to your coming of age, as it were. It really does stay with you your whole life.
It's incredibly powerful, and you have such an emotional connection to it. And for me, it wasn't just bands like the Libertines who kind of made it and had a national significance. There were a load of amazing bands in Northampton I was really inspired by, some of whom most of whom were older and cooler than me, and I'm now meeting 15, 16 years later and going, oh my gosh, you were in my pilot, or you were the Departure. The Departure are a really big band from Northampton, and the singer Maddox Jones is still around and kind of coming back to the town. We had the Moons, of course, the On-Offs. It was and just other bands that never really got necessarily any national acclaim, but we still really inspired each other. There was a wonderful kind of inclusivity to the scene, where if you were new and came looking for a gig at somewhere like the Labour Club or the Racehorse, you'd be welcomed with open arms. And then there'd be older, cooler musicians who'd go, hey, that's really cool. Do you want to come and try and play this with us? Or I'll get you in here. And so there was this very friendly, welcoming atmosphere everywhere, which I think is possibly quite unique and still exists to this day. So yeah, there's a whole kettle of influences going on everywhere. But it's interesting to look back on it, a bit like a teenage diary, really, the songs you write when you're 17, 18, and pull them apart with these actors 16 years later and think what was going on.
You were not old enough for an autobiography yet, really, to be fair. I think that has to happen when you hit your 50s. But you will have plenty of stories to tell from these intervening years, because I say the number of things that I've seen you do and the interactions that will have caused, and the shows. It must be awesome. But to be able to do an autobiographical play like this, again, it's not an indulgence. It's a story that really does need to be told, and to get the impression across of what was going on. And it's like, it must be brilliant fun revisiting some of that music. So what genre did you feel you were in at the time, and what do you now realise you really were?
Good question. Well, it's indie rock and roll, but there's if you think about the mid 2000s, we're in a kind of second wave of Britpop. Like indie music was kind of in the mainstream, which is hard to imagine now. It hasn't been for years, really. There's always great bands. You could look at any era, you know, in the last 70 years, and there's always great bands. But with bands like Franz Ferdinand and Bloc Party and the Killers and the Strokes and Queens of the Stone Age and the White Stripes, there was just a kind of plethora of bands, you know, making the top 10, but also bands that you could really sort of reach out and touch. And I think that was the thing with the Libertines. When I grew up, I was obsessed with the Beatles. I was kind of, and I still am, I was introduced to them at a very early age. So the Libertines were probably the first band I discovered who I could go and see, and it was the early days of MySpace and message boards, and they had this very unique relationship with their fans, the Libertines, where they would just post some pub they were going to be playing in, and everyone would go, and then everyone would go back to a party. And I was too young to go along to any of those things. We're talking sort of 16, 17, but I did a lot of trips to London or Birmingham or different places and missed my last train because, you know, they were 2 hours late coming on stage, following them around. So I think I wanted to think actually that the genre of the bands I was in was kind of one especially was very Libertines inspired. So we were sort of punky indie kind of thing. I wanted everything to be fast. I didn't want anything to be boring, because the other thing is, and like a bit like the characters in the show, the wider context around this, where there were bands like Coldplay and Embrace, and nothing against those bands, but the music was slow and it was kind of big and emotional and stadium rock, and we were anti that. So we wanted to be authentic and fast and scrappy, and sort of full of youthful energy, really. So yeah, I'd say that's the bands that's kind of what I was exploring. And for me, it was always more about jumping around and shouting on stage rather than playing anything kind of brilliant. So it's about bringing the energy rather than the accuracy. Yeah.
And again, I think that certainly has its place. And I think a live gig with that energy is so much more fun than sitting back and listening to a CD. And because it would have been CDs back in the day, and probably the occasional cassette tape might still have been knocking around back in the noughties. But are you going to invite the Libertines to the show?
Well, interestingly, we sing a couple of Libertine songs in the show because they're clearly such an influence for the band, and I have, of course, had to go through the process of asking permission. Yeah. So what's mad for my teenage self is that in some room or on some email chain somewhere, the band's management have checked with the band if they're happy for us to sing their songs, and they've said yes, which is I can't believe. So yes, so I am going to invite them. I mean, it would be my dream if they came. Who knows? I know Pete lives in France now, of course, and they've got their hotel. They run in Margate. I'm not 100% they're going to come down to Northampton. But I think it's really important for them to know, actually, that they were a really big part of what inspired me to go on and do this. And like I say, far from the legacy of the bands I was in, which, you know, didn't make any money or really have any commercial success, the legacy was I just found myself. You know, it's all about self-discovery. I found my friends and my confidence, and I just had such a platform to get out there and play. And I think that the relationships you form with people that you're in bands with, like any intense creative collaboration, they are so significant. They really form your character and they stay with you forever. So in some small part, I have the Libertines to thank for that. And, you know, if they come, I'll die.
It'll be a good night when they are there. That'd be cool. Fingers crossed we see the Libertines turn up. But equally, will be recreating some of your look on opening night when you're down there? Are you going to go for your 2006 maybe haircut and whatever it was you were wearing? Fortunately, fashions haven't changed too much since the 90s. Some of the collars have got smaller. There's less double denim. But other than that, yeah, as you head through that period, things haven't evolved massively, have they?
You're right. It's been interesting as we start to costume the show. So there's, alongside these 5 professional actor musicians, there are about 20 young people as an ensemble who are, some of them are musicians, some of them are actors, some of them both. They're fantastic. And so they're a big part of this show as well, playing live music. And like I say, there's this teenage diary that Alex, the lead character, has, and they are almost like figments of his diary. So they bring to life those sections with movement and music and physical theatre. And we're dressing them all in band t-shirts. So we've had a great time just finding appropriate band t-shirts for them. But as far as the band goes, and I've been showing them some photos of the time, I wore all kinds of sort of nonsensical things, partly in a kind of search to find an image. I think that's one of the fun things in your band. You sort of think, do we all need to be kind of wearing matching jackets like we're in Jersey Boys, or do we need to be you couldn't play in shorts and t-shirt even when it was incredibly hot. That just wasn't cool. I went through a phase of wearing shirts open sort of to the waist with a tie but underneath my shirt, and I'm sure I saw the Libertines do that once and thought it was cool. So I was in a band that did that. Of course I had the long hair. I remember letting my girlfriend dye it, I don't know why, and I sort of looked a bit like a tiger. I had tiger stripes on my head. So there's all kinds of photos where I just think, what on earth are we wearing? But and then military jackets as well. The Libertines in their red military jackets. I was in a band that even in the heat of summer would put on, go down the army surplus store and whack on army jackets. Odd. It's all part of the fun.
Yeah, then again, that is, I think it's a big part of it. It's finding an identity and creating that. And the number of bands that I've interviewed that have either made it, sort of half made it, where they've had deals and it's not really gone anywhere, or some before just some massively big bands over the years, and all of them have come from the same roots. It's the thing. It's a group of people who've got together with a belief and some ideas for songs in their head. And I think exploring that and telling the story behind that, and particularly from your point of view, a few years later, where your career hasn't gone in that direction, but is still sort of running parallel to what you would have liked to have done at the time. I think that's another nice take on it, because you certainly have been successful in that area.
Yeah, well, I suppose combining music and theatre together in this way, it's the most deliberate way I've done it, and it is the most personal show I've ever worked on. It really does border on self-indulgent, but hopefully it's a story that is very universal. I think that's the thing. Through kind of workshopping it and testing it with loads of different people, and we're partnering with Royal and Derngate Northampton, who have been amazing partners in the last couple of years and facilitated work with the university students and also with their young people to kind of develop the script. But every generation I've worked with have kind of seen something in it they recognise, and then seeing the Beatles Get Back film, over Christmas, there's a lot in there as well that is very universal to anyone who's been in a band. So I really hope it will speak to people of all generations, or of any creative endeavour. It's the same as trying to write a play with someone, or make some theatre, or make a film. It's all about those kind of finding yourself as an artist, but also, your relationships and your friendships are what are so sort of key to building you in that way. I rambled a bit there. Did I come away from the question?
Well, who knows what the question was? That's the difficult. But the important thing is we've found out more about the show. So it's not too far down the road for anybody anywhere. So how do we get to Northampton? Where are you performing at? And give us all the details for tickets for Songs of Summer.
Yeah, so we're at the Picturedrome venue, which is on Kettering Road in Northampton, and we're there from the 11th to the 21st of August. Easiest way to get your tickets is just Google Royal and Derngate Song of the Summer. They're our partners. It's Cherwell Theatre Company and Royal and Derngate. But if you Google that, that's going to take you to the ticket booking link. And there are a mix of matinees and evening shows throughout August. I should say it is a standing show, so it's like you're standing at a gig. But obviously there are access, requirements if you need them. So let us know if you really want to come, but you need a seat or you need space, and we'll make that happen for you. I think that's it. Yes. But you can follow we're on all the social media channels. We're called Song of the Summer 2022. So if you want to have a sneaky peek at what we're doing in rehearsals and hear bits of the music, and we're doing regular Instagram takeovers on the Royal and Derngate page and interviews and things like that, then please find us and connect with us, and we'd love to see you at the shows.
Absolutely, and we kind of got a link with the Royal and Derngate and Wolverhampton, in as much as the same architect was behind part of the Royal and Derngate and the Grand Theatre. So
is that right?
Yeah, so it's there's a nice little link there, because I've been to the Royal and Derngate loads of times when we've been seeing shows earlier on the tour before they'd come to the Grand. And a fantastic venue, and obviously a great team working with yourself, and then got quite a treat ahead, I think. So it's going to be absolutely fantastic. So give us all those socials one more time.
So just Song of the Summer 2022, you'll find them across all of them.
Well, Tristan Jackson-Pate. thank you for telling your story, even though you've disguised it a little bit in this, what will be a good, fun show as we head through the summer of 2022.
Thanks, Jason.
Play me on the radio. You wanna move up the charts. The song is just the sum of its parts. We'll show you what we mean. But this is the part where we break things down. Build into the chorus, introduce a minor sound. And this is the bit where we build it up again. Play me on the radio, play me on the radio, play me on the radio. Play me on the radio, play me on the radio, play me on the radio. It doesn't matter what your song is about. That's the least of your worries by far. Just let the chord ring out and bring in the lead guitar. This is the part where we take it down again. Minor change to the lyrics just to show what we intend. Saying very little of consequence. Play me on the radio, play me on the radio, play me on the radio. Play me on the radio, play me on the radio, play me on the radio. What you play, what you say it over and again. Keep on board, you're a dog, and I'll make the top 10. Play me on the radio, play me on the radio, play me on the radio. Play me on the radio, play me on the radio, play me on the radio. Play me on the radio, play me on the radio, play me on the radio. Play me on the radio, play me on the radio, play me on the radio.
A World Against Single-Use Plastic. It's a campaign. It should also be a way of life for all of us wherever we can. To tell us more, I'm joined now by Dr. Rashid Garthwaite and also by Jennifer Carlos. Good afternoon to you both.
Good afternoon, Jason.
So first of all, Rashid, give us a bit of the background to What's Up.
Okay. Well, it actually started off in a very funny sort of way. It was an accident, I think, that made me start this. Literally an accident, because I do a lot of charitable work around the world. And I had injured my foot badly in Malawi whilst I was tending to this young orphan girl. And she had some problem with her eyes, and I was trying to sort some transport for her, etc. And I fell down a ditch because it was pretty late in the evening. And I broke my leg. I'd only been in Malawi 2 days, stayed on for another 10, 12 days, which wasn't a good idea. So I came back here, had a gammy leg, and there was going to be a big problem with it, and I got really told off. So I had actually sepsis, etc., etc. But whilst in hospital, which was quite some time I was there, I was wondering whether I would ever be able to walk again. And the thing that worried me was I enjoy going around the world, helping people with humanitarian stuff and also medical.
Well, your medical background as well. I mean, you're working in Walsall Manor still, I think?
That's right, still working there. I've been in the NHS 50 years now.
That's impressive.
51st year now, yeah. So with that, I mean, my main thrust abroad actually is to teach people how to look after newborn babies.
Mhm.
Because newborn babies, in the first 24 hours of life, 1 million babies die that could potentially be saved. Okay, for just by keeping them warm, just by drying them up, and doing simple things that people don't know. Okay, so I think there are lots of lessons to be learned out there. You don't have to put them on a resuscitate table and give them oxygen, blah blah blah. You can actually do a lot without the high-tech stuff. So I teach non-high-tech stuff to people there. Anyway, coming back here, I was in the hospital. I saw this program by David Attenborough, and a couple of days later, I was still in hospital, and this plastic kept on arriving on my breakfast table and my lunch table and my dinner table. Okay, a lot of food being wasted because I was getting food that I didn't asked for, and a lot of plastic. So I said, well, once I get better, I will set something up so we can actually look into plastics and decrease the single-use plastic. So, I got hold of like-minded people. Wasn't very easy, Jason. And slowly we built up a team with school teachers, faith leaders, 1 or 2 counselors helped me, 1 or 2 hospital people helped me. But as I was Deputy Lieutenant to Her Majesty the Queen, I had support from the Lord Lieutenant. And his friend is Andy Street, our West Midlands mayor.
Yeah.
Well, right. And so when that's a win-win situation, I was then able to launch the project of Walsall Against Single-Use Plastic. A year later becomes World Against Single-Use Plastic. And that's when we launched it at the Manor Hospital. And, from that time, we've got lots and lots of companies working with us. We've got the Miss England pageant, which is where I met this young lady, and we've got 50 countries working with us. So that, in a long-winded way, is a shortish answer to your question.
But I mean, when it comes down to single-use plastic, in the medical situation you were in, there will be some essential single-use plastic. It's a great material. It allows clean, safe, hygienic ways of treating people with equipment which is essentially disposable and comes with a lower impact than causing a health problem. So there are some good things that single-use plastic can do.
Absolutely.
But
I mean, every baby is born in plastic. As soon as you're born, you have a plastic stuff put around you with your name on it.
Yep.
You have a plastic nasogastric tube. You get a plastic nappy. So you're actually born in it. You're born in plastic. But I totally agree with you. A lot of plastic is good. But 50% of plastic produced is single-use plastic. And that's where WASSUP comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. And single-use plastic bottles, absolute no-no. It shouldn't be needed these days. The aluminium can does such a better job and is so much easier to recycle. And once you have got it there, the energy used to recycle it is lower than often some of the other work that you need to do to use single-use plastics. Absolutely.
Apparently, something, Jason, I've been told that 55% of the aluminium that is recycled is actually recaptured. So it's not all hunky-dory as far as aluminium recycling is concerned.
But better.
Yes, sure. Oh, definitely better. Absolutely.
And if you can, when it comes to just drinking water out and about, which is the thing we should be drinking rather than a lot of sugary, fizzy drinks, a refillable bottle that you fill up at home that costs you a fraction of a penny to fill compared to spending £1 on something which you don't need, or for the sake of carrying something with you, it can make a huge difference. And, you might have a better quality water bottle, but you could use that so many more times. And again, it's most likely recyclable at the end of its life anyway.
Absolutely. It's reusable. But one has to remember, Jason, and that is that some cheap bottles from some countries who make them en masse, they contain BPA, which is a toxic substance.
Yeah.
So if anybody's buying these bottles, they should be BPA free.
Yeah, make sure you're looking for that on the label. And but also buy from a trustworthy source as well, because some people could unscrupulously label it BPA free, even though it is full of nasties. So make sure you're buying from an ethical supplier that you know and trust. And again, make it part of your personality as much as anything else, and have some fun with it, but buy something you can reuse. And when it comes to the world that we're living in, Jennifer, I mean, and you've actually traveled to a number of places. with that message. And obviously, you can easily offset your travel for the good work that you do when you get there when it comes to carbon usage.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people now are starting to become aware of the carbon footprint that they're making. So I definitely think it's really important that we are aware of that when traveling to places as well.
So when it comes down to the tale of What's Up and the work that you're doing, how does it fit in with you, Jennifer?
So I got involved through the Miss England contest, and I found about What's Up when I first started 2 years ago as part of the contest. Now, I was introduced by the organizer of this, and I've always, since a young age, wanted to be involved in the environment and making a difference, but I never really had a platform to really speak out about the issues that we were facing. So obviously, I found out about the WASP organisation and thought, that's an organisation that really resonates with me. So over time, I have worked with Professor Gattrad under his mentorship and have been able to go on courses, which has expanded my knowledge. And then I've worked forward and helped people raise awareness and also educate around the world. And I've been lucky to be given the opportunity by What's Up to spread the message through the younger generation, but also every generation, because it's everyone's problem.
Yeah, because I mean, people make light of the fact that going back to when I was a kid, you didn't buy pop bottles in plastic, you bought them in glass. And again, that was something which was actively recycled even back in the 70s and 80s. We're now in a world where, because it's cheaper from a initial cost point of view to drink out of a plastic bottle, that's the route that we've taken. And there are so many people who just aren't thinking really. And the millions of bottles sold in the UK alone that are plastic, and again, it has to be clear plastic to make it easily recyclable anyway. It's buying the right sort of thing when you are buying it, but equally avoiding it where you can. And Rashid, I mean, obviously, from that perspective, the message is one thing, but the practicality is another, and it's about making it practical for people too.
I think if you look at the global problem, I mean, we've been on the line about 10 minutes. So every minute, 1 million bottles are thrown away around the globe. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's a huge number of bottles. So unless and until we get the education in schools right, which is what Jennifer was saying, to understand that we should not be throwing plastic. The second point is if we actually make sure at the dangers of plastic, because microplastic has actually been found in the blood just 2 or 3 months ago. Okay, so microplastic is not only on the other side of the placenta, i.e. affecting newborn babies, but it's also in the blood. It's been found. So what is it going to do to us? Because it's killing marine animals, and we're eating those marine animals, and potentially affects your immune system, makes you infertile, gives you cancers. All these things are potentially what's happening, and more people are getting cancers. Why? We have to ask.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, evolution is going to step in at some point, and it's going to be a complete change. But we need to make sure that we're not causing that, really, don't we?
No, absolutely. And I think the more people tell other people, and I always give this example, and I apologize if your listeners have heard this. If one person tells 3 people, and if each of those 3 people tells 3 different people, it will take you 3 weeks to get through to 8 billion people, which means the whole world can find out, for example, that I've spoken to Jason today. If I told 3 people and each one of those told 3 other people.
Well, let's try and make sure that we do get there and get the message out there and get this. If we can get 8 billion people watching this conversation when I share
Absolutely.
the video, that would be good. But what can we do now, though? Obviously, Jennifer's out there talking about this alongside many others who are your ambassadors.
Sure.
And what happens next? How can we see this really come to fruition? With you, obviously, you've got some good friends working with you on this, but how do we make a difference?
Okay, I think first of all, if we could just go to the basics. I mean, in schools, it's the 3 R's, isn't it? Whereas in the sustainability world, as far as the plastics are concerned, we talk of 4 R's. Refusing, reducing, reusing, recycling. Okay, those are the things that we talk about. Now, refusing to accept plastic. For example, if you go into a shop, if I go into a shop and I forgot my reusable bag and they give me bread and milk or whatever, I just don't take the plastic bag. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's a bit of an inconvenience. But I think on principle, I won't. So that's the first little thing one can do. Okay. But in time, plastic will change to hopefully reused plastic, because I've actually got a picture of a bottle which I took yesterday when I was in London, made from reusable plastic bottles. Is that interesting? So there are 7 types of plastics. The one that's easy to recycle is type 1, which is called PET, and that is easy to recycle and to make other bottles from it, or make other equipment from it.
Yeah,
such
because
as-
it becomes a hard plastic. You can use it to make something which is solid. Playground equipment, that sort of thing, could be made from some of these plastics.
Absolutely. In fact, you can make a bench out of 2,000 bottles of water, a bench in a park.
Yeah.
So yes, so reusing, refusing, recycling. But I think, we talk about taxes, we talk about decreasing, phasing out, the phase out, I think we've passed that stage. You don't phase out, you actually stop. Government should stop production of plastic bottles, should stop production of plastic bags, stop importing of bottles, stop importing it, and put some value to the end of life of plastic. Because it hasn't got value, people throw it away.
Yeah.
If it has the value to it, people would return it. In Germany, a lot of people return.
I've seen the same in Norway, because they've got a krona on there, and you get your money back when you take the bottle back to your supermarket.
Particularly younger people will do it. And in fact, people who are on the streets, certainly in developing countries, if there's a value to it, they would pick it up and take it. And in fact, the biggest pickers of plastic around the world are in poor countries, because they go and take it to recycling people. And in Assam, in India, there is a school run purely on plastic. So children every day collect plastic, bring it to the school gives it to the recycling plants, and that school gets money from the recycling plants, and that helps for the education of children.
That's one way to cover your tuition fees, isn't it? That's certainly a good way of doing it. I'm sure, Jennifer, you'd like to do that when it comes down to your uni fees.
I really would, yes.
That would be
a lot
brilliant.
less expensive. But am I okay just to drop in there a little thing as well, is that in the UK, if people wanted to get involved, I know some coffee shops and things such as Costa do a reusable return scheme, which is basically where you can get one of their reusable Costa cups, for example. You pay, I think it's about £20 for a cup, but then every time you go back, you only pay for your refill. You don't pay for the cup. So it actually works out cheaper in the long run for people going. So that's another scheme that's being set up at the moment.
And that's the sort of thing we need to see more of. So even if it's a paper cup, it still has a cost to it. So if you can do that, and you've got a cup, I mean, you may not even just use it when you go to Costa. It could be you end up making your own coffee, taking it out and save yourself even more money. But there's all sorts of ways around this one. And I think
if you explain that argument, which is paper cup or different type, whatever we produce has got a carbon footprint, and you see production of plastic, as you know, 4 to 5% of emissions, greenhouse gases, are produced by plastic. Hence, what WASSUP has done is we've expanded into air pollution, we've expanded into soil degradation, water eutrophication, all these other things. But most importantly, from my point of view as a pediatrician, I'm passionate about air pollution and how that affects children's health. Yeah, so I can talk about air pollution if you like, because it's a very interesting thing for your listeners. And air pollution isn't just the fact that stuff gets into your lungs and makes you cough. No, air pollution gases, nitrous dioxide, ozone, sulfur dioxide, all these gases from the exhausts of cars, etc. Children are tiny, small, so they are at the level of the exhaust of cars. So they take it neat. Just imagine a baby crossing the road with a mother. The baby's in the pram, okay? Breathing neat stuff straight from the exhaust. Now, in particulate matter, which is in these gases, there is 0.1, 2.5, and 10 microns. Okay, 2.5 and below escapes the lungs and gets into the brain, gets into the pancreas, gets into the heart, strokes, dementia, diabetes. Future textbooks will have written in them as causes of those diseases will be air pollution.
But
air
if you're taking a square molecule of any type, it can cause cancer as well, can't it?
Oh, absolutely. Cancers, indeed. Cancers are not only in the lung, but also elsewhere. So these are horrible things. And I think we are sitting on a time bomb here. And as somebody says, climate change is running away. It's much quicker than we are changing. I think we need to change fast. Lots of positive things we can do. One of the things, for example, from the pediatric point of view, is I am doing a national campaign to get the gases changed in the inhaler for asthma, because that's got a huge carbon footprint. Okay, to change it to other types of inhalers, which can be used and are equally effective. Okay, but it's just that we have to change our behavior.
And it'll be cheaper, it'll be mass produced, and that's the reason why it's there at the moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, my university project, I did a study of chlorofluorocarbons, hydrochlorofluorocarbons, and other CFC replacements, and looking at what happens in the stratospheric conditions that can actually affect things and cause ozone depletion. Now, whereas ozone is great when it's making the sky blue, at ground level, it'll oxidize you because you're basically getting an O2 and a free radical oxygen at some point, and that'll do nasty things to you. So, there's a lot of the chemistry which goes on that you just haven't got a clue about, and this is happening around you. And these gases, as you say, we're breathing in, kids are breathing in, and it really will cause issues as people head through life, and it could start to bring down our life expectancy.
Absolutely. You see, children, for example, in mothers, it's been shown that they get more stillbirths, they get more congenital malformation, they get smaller babies, premature babies. And I don't know whether you know, Jason, the development of the lung mostly happens after birth in the first 5 years of life. And it's been shown that 14% of lung growth is stunted, purely and simply because of that. And that stuff, particulate matters getting into your brain of babies and children, affects their development, affects their intellect. Yeah. So there's a hell of a lot. I mean, the children are so different. The physiology is different. Their behavior is different. And they are exposed to all these things for lifelong. And interestingly, most of air pollution, even in the UK, is within households. Rather than we just think air pollution is outside. No. 5 to 6 times more air pollution in the house, even in the UK. Worse so abroad, where they do cooking in the house and all that.
Yeah, but equally, gases that come out of electronic equipment, there will still be, as things warm up, something which comes off there, things that evaporate off PCBs and things like that, which can add to the environment around you, which it builds up. It's every time you touch something, you're picking up chemicals from it. So we need to think about it.
Totally, absolutely. And smoking. I mean, one of the things was, people are saying now air pollution in the house is as bad as smoking in the house. I was in Leicester giving a talk about a week ago. And as I went into the talk, there were lots of people smoking outside this building. And I wasn't even going to give a talk. I just invited as a guest. Okay? And halfway through the meeting, they said, "Oh, Professor Gatrad will say a few kind words about whatever." So here I was stuck, So I said, "Okay, what am I going to talk about?" I said, "I'm going to talk about guys that were smoking outside. Full respect, they're all my friends. Okay. Now, they may want to kill themselves because that's what they are doing. Okay. But please do not kill your children. Okay. So the message is, stop smoking for the sake of your children, because they are breathing what you are breathing. And it's affecting the lungs, cancer, all the bits that we've mentioned, Jason.
Yeah, and again, it's life expectancy, it's quality of life, and all of those things money can't buy. Yet you can stop spending cash on killing yourself through cigarettes and vaping.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot going on there. Okay, right. So where do we find out more about this campaign and becoming part of it, and maybe even becoming ambassador like Jennifer?
We can find out more on the WhatsApp website, which I'm sure Professor Gatrad will give you, but it's www.whatsupme.com. And basically, there should be lots of information there about what we stand for, what we do. Obviously, talking with yourselves today is going to highlight that more to your viewers. So obviously they will be aware to some extent already, but you'll see some of the different types of projects that we do have on there. There should also be an email at the bottom as well, which you can contact us and get involved. But as Professor Gatrad has outlined, our 4 principles are very simple. The first three are very simple to do by litter picking and raising awareness of the dangers of single-use plastics, as ultimately we all want a world that's, safer for the future generations. And we can signify ourselves as well when we go out as ambassadors with the What's Up International sign as well, which is that. And this can be shown to show that you are advocating for What's Up and you are raising the awareness of whatever you're doing on your day-to-day life. So there will be some emails obviously on the What's Up website, and that should give you some more information.
So check that out. wasupme.com is the website. You can find out more there, see about the campaign, and find out about the story of 3 plastic bottles along the way as well. I know that's one of the
There's
things.
a story of 3 plastic bottles. Yeah, it's a book that I've written. I'll just show you that.
It's a great book. I've read it quite a few times now, even though it's meant for primary school children.
Yeah, there we are. That's the book. And it's for primary schools. And it's got sort of graphic story of what children can be sort of told about. One bottle is thrown on the floor. What happens to it? Goes to landfill, becomes leachified, etc. Next one is in the oceans, microplastics breaking down, etc. And the third one is put into the recycle bin. So it's just basically that's a story, and it's in about 16 pages. So hopefully the children would like that story. Yeah.
And get an understanding of the what can be done and how simple it can be to do that. Well, I'd say worth us finding out, if not for ourselves, for future generations. But for now, Professor Rashid Gafford. And
just before we go, Jason, could I add something else? Because I think plant-based plastic is something that I think the government should be promoting, because we know for ourselves we can use. We can use jute bags. I mean, I've just come back from London, and this is the bag that I took with me. So, reusable.
Yeah, natural fibers.
Yeah. But I think plant-based products, scientists have created the problem, and I think scientists will solve them. But they need government, they need money, they need people to change their behavior.
Yeah.
So I think people ask me, what's the alternative? Alternative is those 4 R's that I mentioned. And there is something. It's not all doom and gloom. We will get it right, but we have to move fast.
Absolutely. But time is running out, and it's more for us as a species rather than the planet. The planet will find a way of surviving past this. It may lose a few animals and biodiversity along the way. That biodiversity could be us that disappears. So we need to make sure we avoid that. There's a lot riding on our behaviour now, and there has been for a number of years. We need to speed up what we are doing. Professor Rashid Gafford and Jennifer Carless, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Many of us have issues when we head out and about abroad, as tummy troubles can upset our holiday. 2 in 5 admit to having had such problems. To tell us more, I'm joined now by Dr. Sarah Jarvis and dietitian Imogen Wolsey. Good afternoon to you both.
Good afternoon.
Listen.
So first of all, Sarah, give us a bit of the background to the sort of things that people are suffering from when they're away.
Well, we all rather take our guts for granted, but unfortunately, bowel problems, shall we say, are extremely common. So lack of fibre, of course, and when you're going on holiday can lead to an increase in constipation. So can lack of fluid. About 1 in 7 adults has constipation anyway. But of course, we also get a lot of people who get what used to, traveller's diarrhea or whatever else we call it. But certainly if you're going to areas outside of maybe Western Europe, and sometimes even in areas inside, but perhaps one of the most common is irritable bowel syndrome. Now, about 1 in 5 people get symptoms of irritable bowel syndrome at some point, and it can lead to really nasty problems. We're talking there about tummy pain, which is often colicky, bloating, and a change in your bowel habit. And that could be diarrhea, it could be constipation, or for some unlucky people, it can be a combination of the two. And unfortunately, a change in your diet, a change in stress levels, a change in eating habits, all sorts of changes to your lifestyle can make symptoms of irritable bowel syndrome more common.
Yeah, all these things can trigger, and as somebody who has ulcerative colitis, I know that traveling can be a little bit of fun when you do change your diet, as I'm controlling mine through what I'm eating rather than through medication. And when we do come to travel, and we will eat a lot of different things. And Imogen, obviously, when it's somebody is out and about, they are going to most likely be not following their normal diet and probably going a little over the top on a number of different things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, traveling and being out of your normal routine can really, really affect the way that your bowels work. And I think that with lots of people, there's a huge psychological component. They get anxious before they go abroad anywhere because they do get nervous about using toilets in public or talking about issues with their family and friends, because we have this weird taboo around talking about our gut health, which is crazy considering that, you know, over 13 million people have gut symptoms. And this is why Simprove have launched our campaign, It Takes Guts, to try and break that taboo and help people feel less alone and more supported when they are discussing their bowel habits.
Yeah, and it's something you do need to talk about. I say I've already outed myself as someone who has bowel problems, so I am used to talking about all sorts of things, including consistency of stools. You do just have to get over it sometimes. And again, Sarah, as a doctor, you're used to having these conversations. So if somebody needs to talk before they travel, then their GP will be there to help, as will a pharmacist too.
They absolutely will. And very often your pharmacist is your first port of call. Now, if you've had problems in the past, you may know what is likely to happen again. So for instance, if you do have IBS, you may know what lifestyle factors can trigger it. You may find that, for instance, thinking carefully about your diet while you're away, eating regular meals, trying to stick to regular meals, avoiding too much alcohol, because of course that can dehydrate you. And it can also make you prone to very bad diet decisions, shall we say. But also you may consider taking a probiotic, because there is very good evidence that some probiotics can help with the symptoms of IBS. And you might want to do that before you go, not least because they may also help with traveler's diarrhea and diarrhea that you get if you have to take antibiotics.
The biome in our stomachs is an important thing. It's got to be balanced well, and anything that can offset it, whether it be that huge amount of alcohol that you stupidly decide to get through on your first night in Neopathos or something, or whether it is something else which can trigger it. And when it comes down to fitting into that our diet and adding that to it, are the good times to take a probiotic? What's the best way to make these things work?
Well, different products will have different recommendations. With Simprove, we encourage people to take a dose first thing in the morning before they've started eating or drinking anything, which allows the bacteria to transit through the stomach and get down into the colon, where it can really make a difference. So with Simprove specifically, it's a first thing in the morning, wait 10 minutes, carry on, but it will be different for every product out there.
But do check those out. And is this something that you can take with you?
So Simprove, definitely. I think that you just have to be, you have to be a bit of a planner. You have to think ahead, because Simprove needs to be stored in the fridge once it's open. But before that, you can just keep it at room temperature. So for me personally, I put some in my check-in luggage. And then when I get to wherever I'm going, I find a fridge to keep it when I'm using it.
You'll often get a fridge in the room, even if they are trying to sell you alcohol from it, but there's no room to sneak something in there. And Sarah, again, this is something which is about our overall whole health, isn't it? And we say we need to make sure we don't abandon our good behaviour when we're on holiday, but we can still have a little bit of fun.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, we always talk about it's not what you eat today, it's what you eat every day. But in terms of the short-term symptoms, that's not necessarily true. So, for instance, if you're going somewhere outside Western Europe or Australia or the USA, then I always suggest that my patients stick by the mantra, boil it, peel it, cook it, or forget it. And please don't forget that things like, say, ice, even if you're having a bottled drink, the ice that comes with the drink could well have come from contaminated water. So do think very carefully about when you look at those very tempting looking street foods and things, then just think about what they may have been washed in. Stick to cooked foods, or stick to things where you know that they're going to be safe.
And it could be just you're not used to what's in there, and the locals are getting doses of this all the time, so they don't have any ill effects from it. But your delicate stomach may be the thing that can catch you out there. So avoid going down that route. Think about what you're consuming, but also say plan, prepare ahead, and take away some of the anxiety by knowing you've done something too.
Absolutely. And let's not forget, of course, that in the same way that you can't be certain that you've got a fridge in your room, not all hotels in every country will have their own bathroom. So just make sure in advance, and that'll make you feel much more confident.
Yeah, and so whether you have an existing condition or you are prone to having a tummy trouble or two when you travel, there are things that you can do to try and offset that and make sure we look after ourselves. So first of all, Sarah, I mean, obviously we talked to our pharmacist and then GP if necessary. Any other tips for us before we travel?
Well, if you want more information on generally having a healthy gut, you can go to www.simprove.com. But otherwise, if you've got an existing gut condition, for instance, there's the Crohn's and Colitis website, which has their can't wait cards in case you need the toilet urgently, and they're available in 30 languages. And then on bathroomcity.co.uk, there are 62 languages in which you can ask for a toilet urgently.
And sometimes people can just tell by the look on your face as well. Imogen, any other tips from you?
No, I think Sarah's covered that all. We've got our It Takes Gut Summer Hub on Simprove website, which has got loads of nice articles and little blog posts to read to put people at ease before they go travelling.
So SYMPROVE is a spelling on Simprove. Check that out. See how getting your gut in a good floral condition and taking a probiotic with you can make a massive difference on your holiday, and you can feel good about yourself as you have a brilliant time. Dietitian Imogen Wolseley and Dr. Sarah Jarvis, thank you both for joining us.
Thank you
Thanks
so
very much.
That's a lot for this week. Thank you so much for joining me. Back with episode 683 next week. I'll see you then. Ta-ra for now.
Goodbye from the milk bar. 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 Yeah. Goodbye from the milk bar. Yeah.